13 school years ago, I started my first day as a student teacher at Robinson Middle School in Topeka, Kansas. I was passionate, I was optimistic, I was broke beyond belief, and importantly, my hairline hadn't run away from me yet. But I did hit the jackpot with the teacher I was paired up with. He was a veteran teacher, and he trusted that I would learn through the process. So instead of introducing me to the students on the first day of school, Paul allowed me to introduce myself. So I walked to the front of the classroom, and I sat on a stool, and I said this. Hi, my name's Mr. Woody, and I'm going to be your student teacher for a little while. And I know that we only met a few minutes ago, but I also know that many of you in this room already don't like me. It's not because of the way that I do my hair. It's not because of the clothes that I wear. It's not because my skin is a few shades lighter than many of yours. It's because I'm a teacher. It's because I'm sitting up here and you're sitting out there. This is year 9 in education for you, which means many of you have had many negative experiences with people who sit up here. And I just want to start by saying, I'm sorry. And I understand. I understand that we're not starting with a blank slate. But I do want to get to know you, and I do want to help you learn, and I do want your experience in education, at least in this room, to not be negative. See, I had learned some things about teaching students of color before I became a student teacher. I had learned some things through personal experiences that I'll share with you tonight. I learned some things through doing classroom observations even before I became a student teacher. And now, after 13 school years in public education, I've been able to boil it down to this. Students of color bring generations worth of negative experiences and negative opinions with them to the classroom. And left unaddressed, that hinders their ability to learn. And today, I want to put a name to all of that weight. I want to call it generational education trauma. So today, we're going to first identify what exactly is generational education trauma. And then we're going to look at what it looks like when it plays out in the classroom. And last, we're going to look at some solutions. But before anything else, it's important for me to share a few things about me, because I think they might be important and relevant to this speech. And also, many parts of my identity are invisible to many people. For example, I'm biracial. I'm the son of a black man and a white woman. And I'm also aware that to many people, I'm perceived to be white. What that means, aside from the genuine surprise and the microaggressive statements, is that I know that I move through the world in a way that is different than, say, my relatives on my dad's side of the family. Also worth mentioning are the years that I spent basically growing up in the Boys and Girls Club of Topeka, where my dad was the executive director. My time that I spent there, basically for this purpose of this speech, served as years of sociological research, because the majority of the youth at the club were black and brown. Here, today, above all else, I'm a public school teacher. And academics who study the field of education, some study on how generational trauma impacts a person's ability to learn. And this makes sense, especially if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those of us who work in education are familiar with this theory from the 1940s, but if you're not, here's the rub. If your basic needs, like access to food, access to water, access to shelter, are in jeopardy, it's difficult, if not impossible, to achieve higher level needs like furthering your education or building your critical thinking skills. Some in the field of education are beginning to shift the focus away from how generational trauma impacts education to how education causes generational trauma. Stephanie Coate is a visiting scholar at the National Endowment for Financial Education. And she writes that Native American communities had built complex, multimodal systems of learning that utilized all 5 human senses. And then the modern American public education system stripped that away. A 2022 Georgia State University study focused on school safety among black students in America. And it found that in school funding, curriculum, instruction, discipline, and school policies, black students are at a disadvantage. And they often find themselves in school environments feeling unsafe and unsupported. So what does this look like? I want you to picture a young boy, a young black man, about 3rd grade. His support system includes his mom, his dad, his older brother, his uncle, and a cousin that frequently visit the house, in addition to about 4 friends his age who live in the same neighborhood and attend the same school. If mom, the older brother, the uncle, and the cousin all had crappy experiences in public education, that's a lot of mental weight for that young man to carry around in his backpack every day at school. Even if his dad is a vocal proponent of education, even if the young man's teacher is absolutely electric, those 2 people are still fighting up a stream of negative rhetoric that stems from years of real, valid trauma. And then, 6 years later, he walks into my freshman English class. And let me tell you, I am aware there is no shortage of opinions about what's going on in high school classrooms. From publicly published think pieces to the dumpster fire known as Facebook, to Instagram, to Threads, to the artist formerly known as Twitter, to Nextdoor, all the way down to your local newspaper's comment section. There are a lot of things happening in high school classrooms. Absenteeism, tardies, students with their heads down on desks, students refusing to do work, students disrespecting other students, students disrespecting teachers. But viewing those things as problems rather than symptoms of a larger problem is, well, a problem. It's short-sighted. Say that young black man who made it to my freshman English class is suffering with many of those symptoms. His head is down on his desk while we are reading our district-mandated curriculum, To Kill a Mockingbird. He is frequently late to class, which means that he misses out on the reading check quizzes that take place in the first 5 minutes of class. He has a long list of missing work, but he can't generate the momentum to get it done because of his number of absences, which lead to stints and in-school suspension. But I know, after building a relationship with him, his head isn't down on that desk because he's tuned out. He's just not feeling the book. And I know that because we built a relationship. And can you blame him for not feeling the book? Does a young black man living in America need to read a book from 50 years ago to know that America has a problem with racism? And do I need to punish him for having his head down on his desk when I know that he plays a lot of sports, he helps his dad with the business that his dad owns, he volunteers at his church all the time, and his older brother is up playing video games all the time, which means he doesn't get a lot of sleep. To be honest, I'm just glad he's here. He was late, but he's here. His head is down, but he's here. And in a system that regularly reminds young black boys that they don't belong here, I want him to know that he belongs here, in my classroom. So what do we do here with this? 3 things. First, we need anyone in education and anyone who wants to have an opinion about education to lead with empathy. And what do I mean when I say anyone who wants to have an opinion on education? Because sure, I do mean Twitter user with Oakley sunglasses, user number 123456777. But I also mean elected officials. And let me be super clear about what I mean when I say elected officials. I mean members of state legislatures and state boards of education. Because you have the largest impact on public education in this country. Not the president, not the US Congress, not the Senate, you. And when you are voting on pieces of legislation about public education or creating legislation about public education, you're impacting children. And I know that you get taken out to fancy lunches and dinners and drinks by members of political action committees and lobbyists, but when you go back to the legislature and you vote on that legislation, you're impacting children, the segment of this society with the least amount of agency, the segment of the society that is jaded and holds trauma about education. You have the ability to shape that. Use it. Second, let me step down off my political soapbox for a moment, and I'll keep this one simple. We need more educators of color. We need more Black teachers, Latina teachers, more Native American teachers, more Asian teachers, and administrators. Because these are the populations who are losing faith in public education or have already lost faith in education. They need to see faces who look like theirs that still have faith in education. They need to see a face that looks like theirs in the classroom because maybe they have experienced the same similar personal experience as the student who's acting out in the classroom from a place of generational education trauma. Because then that interaction becomes a connection and a one-on-one conversation in the hallway instead of a detention or a trip to the principal's office or a trip to see the school resource officer, all of which can escalate to the worst possible outcome. Last, we need to repair and rebuild community among communities of color. And when I say we, I mean we with a capital W. For example, I mean Black folks with a capital B. We need to repair the bridge between family and friends and schools. And it needs to start with leaders of color. It needs to start with community leaders who are Black, Latina, Native American, and Asian, because that's where the trust is. That's where the potential is. And it can look different in many different communities. Maybe it's a music star who has made it big, who comes back to her hometown to rebuild the connection between the neighborhood where she lived and the schools that she attended. Maybe it's a movie star. Maybe it's an athlete. Maybe it's a fashion star. Whatever it is, it needs to be a prolonged effort over a long period of time. And it has to start with empathy. It has to start with stepping onto a front porch and listening to a mom tell her story about how 50 years ago she was punished for the way that she wore her hair. And then listening to her daughter tell the story of how she was punished for the exact same thing last week. It starts with listening to a conversation around a kitchen table where a young man in high school talks about how he is marked tardy at his school every single day. And the high school never asks him why, because if they did, they would learn that he has to walk all three of his younger siblings to school first before it's his turn, because his dad leaves the home super early in the morning to run his own business, which leaves him as the man of the house. Listen, affirm, and then lead with empathy. These are just 3 possible solutions. They're not quick, they're not easy, and I hate to break it to you, but they're also not going to solve the entire problem. But we have to do something. Because as we sit around and wait for the perfect solution to fall out of the sky, our education system is crumbling. Hi, I'm Mr. Woody, and this school year I teach freshman English, honors freshman English, and public speaking. My college career began on this very campus. My freshman year, my first semester GPA was a 0.9, and I ended up on academic probation. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts from Washburn University in English education. I also graduated with a Master of Arts in Communication from the University of Colorado, Denver. There are a lot of people in this room, and maybe, hopefully, more who will watch this video afterwards. We all have something unique in our bag. In fact, you might relate to Grammy Award-winning artist Will Smith, who says, "I got a Prada bag with a lot of stuff in it." And if that's you, you're doing better than me. And my blue bag, but regardless of what label is on your bag or not, what's in it shapes how you view public education as a path to success or not. Generational education trauma is real. And just like any other kind of trauma, it's not going anywhere if we ignore it. It's time for us to acknowledge it, understand it, and do something about it. Our children in our communities deserve better. It's time for us to work with them to build schools and build classrooms that are safe for all students to learn. Thank you.